We prefer to do it now.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, David. Well, this is one of the critical areas for all of us, and the tripartite area. There's no doubt that suicides at sea and harassment and bullying, workplace violence in terms of the ILO verbiage, is one of the critical issues facing the rights of seafarers internationally. The seafarers at one stage of this process submitted a resolution as a proper way forward, and much of it very resonates with us. We've determined a different way forward, but I'll just quote from the ship owners' resolution. Recognising that harassment and bullying can have serious consequences for the physical and emotional health of seafarers, led to decreased motivation and can compromise cohesive and effective teamwork on board ships. Mindful that, as a ship is often a seafarer's home for many months, harassment and bullying can be of concern given the shipboard living and working environment, isolation, size and proximity of cabins, and the necessity to remain at the workplace during rest periods. Recognising further that harassment and bullying can have negative effects for companies, resulting in a deterioration of working conditions and potential organisational, economic and legal consequences. Acknowledging that in recent years, awareness of this issue within the maritime workplace has increased, and it is now of concern to all ILO member states. And in the ultimate paragraph, calls upon the governing body of the International Labour Office to request the Director General to draw the attention of all ILO member states to the joint ICS-ITF publication, aforementioned publication, in the decision before us, and to encourage them to promote dissemination of the guidance in their countries. Just to draw a line, a practical line, as we did with piracy, and the seafarer who was the captain who was bashed for talking to his wife. In Australia 3 weeks ago, an Australian crew at 1:30 in the morning was forcibly removed from their cabin by 30 private security guards while they were in bed asleep at 1:30 a.m, deposited on the wharf in a port in Sydney, in Australia, on an Australian coastal run, on an Australian flag vessel under Australian port state control, and 8 seafarers who had been brought into the country secretly and without any consultation, and were not informed, and they were members of our seafaring Indian affiliate, were not told, were met by 30 security guards, escorted up the gangway of the Australian flagged ship, and then were told that they were to leave within half an hour. That whole process had been developed over a month to 6 weeks by the Australian authorities, including the Australian Port State Authority, had gone through Australian Customs and Immigration, the Department of Transport and Regional Services, and of course AMSA, and when it's very hopeful and optimistic, now support the process of harassment and bullying. The statement, and the reason we use this incident, isn't to embarrass Australia. I am an Australian. It is to underline that in the tripartite nature, bullying and harassment, the denial of those Indian seafarers' rights to know what situation they were going into, the rights of the Australian seafarers to know that they would not be removed in the terms of the shipowners' resolution from their home in the middle of the night, will have consequences that will resonate for all of those seafarers for many years to come. And the people that were ultimately responsible to bring in a workforce, not an Australian workforce, but into an Australian workplace under their port state and flag state jurisdiction, are not party to a process of resolving harassment, bullying and workplace violence. They are party to a process of promoting it. And if we're serious about making these guidelines come into effect, we will be serious in Australia and elsewhere to protect the real rights of seafarers, whether they be Australian or Indian. Thank you very much, sir.